This conference will now be recorded.
I believe that it is a metal sign. It does say on the photos that we provided, there's a description from Gup Signs.
Are the letters raised at all?
No, the letters are not raised.
Okay.
Patricia, I'm confused. Bill McBride. You said you had two alternatives. One was a white background and the other was a dark background. I'm only looking at a sign with a white background in the application that I have in front of me. Am I missing something?
I did send a bunch of renderings to Steve, and the sign option with the dark background was only the small menu sign, not the larger white sign that would be over the window. So that's just one single option there. We only provided two different options for the smaller vinyl menu signs. But
So
I
you
did.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So you would be okay with having two different signs, one on the menu sign and one on your building?
Oh yes, absolutely. So, yeah, it appears as though the last folks that were in, they did have some window signage as well as the menu sign, which would help folks to identify where our door is as compared to the rest of the building. Because the menu sign's kind of far away. It's like the back door of that building in the back of the lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think you misunderstood me. Maybe I wasn't clear. I'm just saying that don't you want to keep both the menu signs and the sign on your building the same? So if it's a white background, you have a white background at the front.
Yeah. So because it's just black and white, we figured it wouldn't make a huge difference. But again, we will leave that completely up to you guys. We were trying to think about what would look best on the menu itself with the other signs that are on it. Uh, for us, if we could have it uniform all the way across, that would be great. Or if you guys want the menu to look more tied together, we could go with the darker background. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, I think that I would like you to make a preference right now as to which color you're going to use. I mean, I don't see a problem with either one of those. Does anybody else? Ken, do you see a problem with using a black or a white background?
You mean could I ask just a few questions to
Sure.
Patrice?
Mm-hmm.
So when you say menu sign, does that just mean like the sign out front, JoJo Pittsford Pub and your business?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you got it.
And then,
yeah.
and then is that, I see where it says, I think that says whole wellness on the menu sign. Is that like what it would be or what it is
Mhm.
now? That's what's proposed?
That's what it, yes, that's what we're proposing, yes.
Then the other sign, I gather, the one with the cast iron, is so people to have an idea of where you are in the building.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I don't know if you got a copy of the first rendering that I sent to Steve when you were discussing the cast iron. He did give me some more information that that would require additional permits. So we did scrap that one. And the sign that I'm submitting for today is the flat sign that goes above the window. So I don't think there's any cast iron on that side.
Okay. So, hang on a second.
Yeah, Ken, they opted out of the projection sign. There is no cast iron. It's a flat sign over the window where there used to be, one of the tenants actually had a sign in the same place. Another tenant had one in a different place, but on the building. So they scrapped the projected sign that would stick out perpendicular to the building and opted for a building mounted sign, which falls in line with the signing requirements without a zone, without any
Okay,
Okay, all right. But let me be sure I understand this. The sign out front, with the Pittsford Pub sign,
Yeah.
you would like to make that black and the other one on the building white? Is that the background? Is that correct?
We could go with both signs having white backgrounds if you guys would like it to be uniform, but there isn't much of a difference being that there's no color really being used. It's not going to make a huge difference as far as our branding is concerned. So we just wanted to give two options to see what the village would prefer. Because we know a lot of the signs on that menu are a little bit darker.
Yeah, for distinguishing purposes, I would think that you're better off with both signs being white in the background. And that's not a HPB requirement, but just to distinguish yourself a little bit better and be more consistent, I would recommend both be white backgrounds.
Sure, that's fine with us. We can definitely go with that if everybody's okay with it.
Do I have any other questions, Ken?
no, I don't.
Bill, do you have any other questions?
I do have one question. What does your, what does your business do?
We do wellness counseling, so it's like health-based counseling. So we work with mostly adults, rarely some kids, that are maybe struggling with health and wellness, and we try to kind of get them back on the right track. And that is pretty much the gist of it.
You're talking about emotional wellness. Yeah, I think we all need that now.
Yes, it's been extraordinarily busy.
So Bill, do you have any other questions about the application?
No, I understand everything now.
Okay. So does somebody want to make a motion? Ken, do you want to give it a try? It's an easy one.
Okay.
Yep.
I make a motion that we accept the application as made.
And then just to clarify, we want to say we're accepting the application with the white background and the black letters, just to clarify, okay? For both of them, the ones on the front sign and the building sign.
Fabulous. Wonderful.
So wait, I'm just going to have to, do I have a second?
I second Bill McBride.
Okay, so Bill is seconding. Okay. We could do roll call. I could do it. Lisa, yes. Ken Morrow, how do you
Yes.
vote? Bill McBride, how do you vote?
For it.
Bill McBride?
Bill McBride, yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So that motion has passed, and go and put up your sign and start your business. We're excited to have you.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good timing for that business.
Yes, very good.
absolutely.
I'll get into emotional counseling if we don't get through this. Okay, so that's the end of our formal applications, but we do have some people here to discuss or to ask our opinions, I guess you could say non-formally, about a project that we're very excited to hear about at Shane Place in between Aladdin's and Lock 32. So is that Jenny is going to talk?
Sure, I'll start. Thank you very much for
This is
allowing
Jeff.
us to.
Hold on, this is Jeff Turner. We only have 3 board members here, and I'm a little concerned that the applicant or future applicant is only hearing from 3 people, but I'll leave that up to the applicant.
Well,
Well, we do have a quorum, Jeff.
It's a quorum, but I'm just concerned that somebody will have a viewpoint in the future that's not being expressed tonight, that may not, or that may sway other board members from what their opinions might be tonight. And I just wanted to let the applicant know we only have 3 people. And I don't know what their time frame. I'm not saying that the 3 shouldn't comment. I'm just saying that I'm a little concerned about the fact we only have 3.
Okay, I appreciate that,
Can
Jeff.
could we go ahead and comment, Jeff, and then
Okay,
the
I'm not
applicant
saying.
can take that into consideration?
Yeah, I'm not saying no. I was just pointing that out for the applicant.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
comfortable, Jenny, for you to present, and if there's any major issues, I'm certain that we will hear from that and we can get those to you prior to you doing a formal application.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I'm fine with that as well. I understand that this is not a formal meeting. It was a request, just hoping to have a little more input when some of the other pieces that we're awaiting do fall into place.
Okay.
So,
Um,
So also, I see signed on, in case there are specific questions, Daniel Pope is on, who is our architect, and Casey Dunleavy, one of the tenants on Shane Place. But just to be clear, I, as the landowner, am the applicant, because the intent is for this pavilion to be used by multiple constituencies, not only Lot 32.
Okay.
I sent a little bit of a letter of introduction, but I'm happy to summarize quickly, not to waste anybody's time. I'm conscious of everyone's time. Back as summer was winding up, I met with the tenants and felt that the shared community space had been very successful over the summer, really became a fun and appealing gathering space, considering how limited all of us were and where we could be and where we could be finding places for enjoyment. And we approached Steve and Mayor Corby and toured the space and talked about the idea of some sort of way to make that space usable once we had inclement weather, and with the intent that all of the users, the restaurants, could potentially extend their business into times that might be challenging otherwise. So we spoke with the village trustees first time in October. We've also had informational meetings with planning and zoning. There are still a couple of zoning issues to be resolved, and those will be coming forward at a public hearing in February. But we thought, my hope in the meantime was that we could at least show this group the plans, get your feedback, incorporate those that we can, discuss those that we can't, so that when presumably, hopefully, assuming that the zoning changes do allow us to move forward, we would be ready to come forward to you for actual formal review. So that is why the request. When we first looked at the site, we thought that it was important to stay consistent with the existing pavilion on Shane Place that is right up against the canal. That was a combined effort in 1995 between the Canal Corp, the village, and my father at the time built that structure, and it would seem wise, although I am not a design expert, but it would seem wise to be consistent with that. And that is what you see before you. Mr. Pope has done a sketch that essentially replicates the features of the existing pavilion. There are a couple of design questions that I would like to ask the group, but before getting into those, that's just the summary of what we're asking you to look at. So I wanted to be sure that that's clear, or are there any questions about that much of the
Yeah.
story?
Thank you, Jenny. So has everybody seen the drawing of the proposed pavilion? Bill McBride,
Yes.
have you? Okay. So I want to
Yes,
commend you,
yes.
Neil. I think you've done a great job in that drawing, and the way you have replicated that other pavilion there, it really looks nice. The actual structure is.
I would second that. I think it's great. I
Yeah.
think it fits
Yeah.
the community very well.
Yeah, and it's very similar. I mean, just a larger scale than what's there. So me personally, I don't see any problem with that piece of your proposal. It looks architecturally, it looks like it fits very well. I love the idea of using that space. I think that we've all had to think out of the box, and I think that people just love it there. And I know they'd love to be there all year round. So I'm really excited about that. Where I see some kind of, not controversy, but some discussion is going to be how you side it. So I just want to ask Ken first, if we can just kind of talk about the actual the structure, just the general wooden structure. Does anybody have any comments or any concerns about that architecturally or mass and scale? And I'm going to start with you first, since I can see you. I don't know, I can't see Bill McBride for some reason. So do you have any questions for the
I'm here.
applicant or the architect about the actual structure first? Let's go with the structure.
You're talking to Ken?
Yeah, I'm talking to Ken. Ken, do you have any?
Talking to Bill.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't have a concern with the structure. I'd kind of like to hear what Jenny had to say at some point.
Okay. All right. How about you, Bill? Any concerns from you personally as far as what you're thinking?
I have no concerns with what we're looking at as the physical structure as it's designed. I think, a matter of fact, I like it a lot. It fits the surroundings. I like it a lot. My questions and issues concern how we do the sidings.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll go to that next. Steve, it looks like you have your hand up.
To say right now, there is no plan for the sides. Right now, the only thing they want to apply for is the structure. If they choose to do the sides, they will have to come back to the board with another design or with those options to the board. Right now, as far as my understanding and working with Mrs. Collins, is that they want to get the approval for the structure itself, so that can be pushed forward, be progressed. And then when the option, and it's all part of obviously finances, whichever option, they may come in with 2 or 3 options and then come to the board and say, here's our ideas, which one do you prefer? But right now, because of the time frame and trying to get this move forward, the only thing they want to apply for is the structure that's in front of you today.
Okay, great. That's helpful.
Yep, that's correct, right,
Okay.
Jenny?
Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes. As I've said to both Steve and Dan, since this is an informal meeting, I guess I will just be informal. I have a love-hate relationship with the idea of doing more than that. There is part of me that thinks that some semi-enclosure with some really lovely, perhaps overhead doors that are in a carriage style or something like that would allow us to close it off in really bad weather, and yet the finances of all that at this point seem a bit overwhelming. So particularly because, of the very reason that we've gotten here in the first place. Our tenants are struggling. Winter has hit again. They're struggling with rents, and that's a trickle down. And so how much can we put into this right off the bat? We investigated, for example, vinyl roll down windows. That's certainly the most economical. We looked at it, and so that option is somewhere around, I don't know, $10,000 or $12,000, all the way up to Mr. Pope found, beautiful Anderson glass doors that would, essentially quadruple the cost of the structure.
Sure.
So
Let
that-
me ask Steve, this is kind of a question, Steve, and actually Jeff as well. So when we start doing the sides, does that change the zoning of this? Because if you're talking about just a kind of like a gazebo, and then you start putting in like windows and siding, doesn't it change zoning? No, it doesn't? Okay. Because it seems like it would go from like a pavilion to a actual building.
No, structure's a structure. You have jurisdiction of it.
Okay.
And it has to be conditioned space.
Okay, so we're not passing our judgment on anything right now, but the structure as it's been depicted, and the applicant may or may not decide in the future to put some sidings on it. Is that correct?
That's correct, Bill.
Okay.
Having
All right.
said that,
Good.
and having agreed with that, I certainly would not object to any input that would assist us in thinking that through for the future. So if there's considerations about a style of window or that we should consider, I would not object to hearing that, certainly. But yes, we'll start simply with the structure.
Jennifer, do you see this being used year-round in the future?
I really do. I mean, we know that Rochester in the winter can be anything from 0 to 50 degrees on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
Casey had a day over the weekend where people were able to be outside, and I think that with a cover over that to make it a bit more comfortable, those days might certainly increase. It's pretty
Jenny,
much anything goes weather-wise.
So Jenny, this is my personal opinion, and again, this is very kind of premature, but I as I'm thinking about this, I mean, I love the architectural structure. I love the way it mimics the one that's on the canal. When we start getting into more permanent siding, to me, it starts to look like another house. And I worry about that openness of, closing in the canal. So that would be my worry. I'm not saying that I, wouldn't be open to seeing what you have, but right now, I would lean for something that's a little bit less permanent wallish and more like what Aladdin's has, kind of the roll down stuff. But again, you got to figure out what's the rationale and does the roll down windows really help us sit out there in February? I don't know. But so that's just my personal kind of opinion about it. I just don't want it to look like a whole nother big building sitting there.
No, I agree with you. And I do think, how comfortable people are with closed-in structures in the future after the last year that we've been through is the question yet to be seen. I know I personally am far more comfortable anytime I can keep the fresh air blowing in my face instead of being closed in. So I think that's certainly something to consider. So back to then the structure, the materials. Dan can speak to this better, but it is designed to be the same metal roof, simple frame construction. Although we did have in one of our contractors said that another option or idea from simple frame construction might be to use more like barn timber like look. Dan, can you describe that better than
More of
I
a
can?
heavy timber look. Currently, the existing pavilion has 2x8 rafters every 16 inches on center. And you look up there and you see all this wood up there. to make this more barn-like looking, if you will, the heavy timber would be trusses that we would build, say, out of 4x6s, and they'd look like trusses, and they'd be almost decorative, but also functional for the structure of the building. And we would put those, say, every 4 or 6 feet down that 28-foot length. And then that would be a much more attractive look in my mind, to have this heavy timber structure built out of trusses. Certainly the costs go up with that. So, and we just decided for the first pass on this is just to stick with the regular stick building of the structure. They've got 6x6 posts that are raw. They're not trimmed out with any kind of material. I'm not particularly personally wild about that, because little kids can grab those things and get slivers on them. They're just exposed for a little bit of a dangerous thing for injury. But other than that, we've kept to everything that existing structure has to it, with the split beams and 6x6s and the cross bracing and the exposed rafter tails and the metal roof. And we added up top a little hat on top of the building that was going to incorporate a potential sign.
Right.
It'll have to be designed.
Sure. Well, as far as for tonight, for information only, we can't comment on the
Right.
other idea because we can't see it. So, I mean,
Right.
It sounds nice. I kind of think that you want to be relatively conservative with the funds and get what you're looking for, which is a covered space for people to use. I would always vouch on going the less expensive one because it looks great. I think that when we start getting really fancy and heavy, that's when you might run into some trouble architecturally, and people might, find it a little bit too in your face. So we kind of like things to blend in with the area. That's my own opinion, but I think what you've got right now looks amazing.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
I would agree with that, and it's consistent with what exists there in the other pavilion. So I'm comfortable with it too, but we could certainly entertain an alternative in the future when it gets down to it.
The only other thing I might ask or add is consideration of these birds that can nest up in these areas, especially right on top of that beam that's there setting. I don't know if you have any troubles with that now. I didn't notice, but that can be an awful concern for these birds flying around up into these spaces. So I've got to be clever, figure something out there. They love to find little spots to perch and nest. We have beams up there that have shelves between these 2x8s rafters. They'll sit right up in there and build their little nest. Small item, but want to bring that up as part of might be incorporated in the design.
There are some solutions to that too. We have a place down at Lake Chautauqua where they have a lot of birds, and you get little spinning devices that you can put over the roof and under the roof that keep birds away. So there are solutions to that.
Okay. Yeah, they also make like a comb type device that goes along the top of the rafters that will keep the birds from landing there.
Okay.
This is Jenny Searle speaking. I'm sorry, I was a little late joining the meeting. Regarding bird deterrent, the little spiky things that Steve was mentioning is pretty good for larger birds, but for smaller birds like sparrows, they will simply build their nests on there. I've seen many buildings with that type of bird deterrent that has not been effective. So what Bill McBride was suggesting sounds like a better solution from my experience. I do have a comment about the design as presented to us. The support posts are called out as 6x6. Is that correct, Mr. Pope?
Yes.
My concern is that given the height of the building, of the pavilion, and the size of it, and by that I mean length and width, I'm concerned a little bit that the 6x6 posts will seem very light. And I know that they are appropriate structurally, but visually, it's very easy for posts to appear too slender to support the structure above them. So I guess I would urge you to consider adding, if you could use a steel column that is wrapped in wood that is a little larger dimension rather than trying to use like an 8x8 timber. But I think you might want to at least take a look at how the appearance is changed by using an 8x8 dimension rather than a 6x6 dimension on the posts.
Well, I guess that is good concern. If we're going to use an 8x8, we can. The question would be, do we want to leave it raw like this one is, and or do we want to use a 6x6 and beef it up with some cedar trim and paint it? So that's
I would not have a preference one way or the other. What I'm interested in is the visual effects of the larger cross section.
And again, Daniel, I think that I made this statement before. Try not to get too fancy. Trying to stay, kind of traditional with what's around there and not get overly fancy. I know that people start getting excited about adding and fancying things up. Well, very, very simple.
Yeah, and Lisa, I've talked to Jenny considerably about all of this, and we've backed off about trying to make this overly fancy with a lot of detail. You can go a long way with making this a beautiful building, but it's not necessary.
Exactly.
And I agree with you and the committee on that. So we're going to do that and just keep it simple. But what we don't want to do is have to keep going backwards and coming to you different designs, because that's not productive for us.
Sure. And I think keeping it simple is going to make Jenny happy too, as far as her pocketbook goes.
Oh, right.
Well, and I appreciate that, Lisa, but also, quite frankly, from the minute we walked the space and compared to what exists, that was my concern. I don't want it to overpower the space. You want to be able to see the canal still from wherever you're sitting. You don't want all kinds of structures in the way. That defeats a different purpose. So I'm actually quite pleased to hear that you're encouraging us to keep it simple.
Great.
I would like to make two more comments, if I could, please. In regards to design, I think it's important to keep the design of your proposed structure compatible with the other two structures that are already in place on the canal. So I would encourage you to think about that. The other thing, I will just say as a personal comment, I'm a person who's almost always cold, but I'm also a person who loves to be outside regardless of the weather. So having a permanent roof over that area creates an area that is permanently without sunshine, which I understand in the summer is great, but to extend your services through the fall and spring in particular, I personally would prefer to sit in the sun than sit under a pavilion. If it's 45 and sunny, I can sit outside far more comfortably. And this is just a personal comment. So if there's some way that you could, certainly you couldn't have a solid roof that would be removable, but perhaps a canopy or something like that, something that could be more easily, the posts could be permanent, but the cover could be seasonal, just from my frame of reference.
Jenny, can I make a comment? Because I was there quite a bit from, from June all the way through till watching the Bills game. And I have to say that when it is the middle of July at 12 noon, you do not want to sit in the sun. You are on paid. You are on paid. Hold on. When it gets to be August and September, the sun actually drops and it kind of comes in from the side. Right. And you're actually, when we were using the umbrellas, we were having to tip them because the sun was going sideways. So it's actually relatively placed nicely to give you the sun when you wanted it and not sun when you don't want it. Just from
Comment.
I would agree with that, Bill McBride. And further, I think you're walking away from the consistency when you start doing removable roofs or see-through roofs. You're walking away from the other designs that are down there on the canal. So I have a concern about that too.
Well, we put a seating area out there as well, and as you see, there's plenty of space on either side of Aladdin's and Lock 32 there, where we've got green space, and we're going to put out a lot of planters and planter boxes, if you will, as well as the landscaping we've got in front of the parking. So we're trying to create this little pocket park too, and be sensitive to that. And with this pavilion, I think we've scaled it down. It was larger. But anyway, that's just for your information.
So you're envisioning a seating area outside of the covered area too.
That's right. We know that between Lock 32 and the pavilion, we have a small seating area there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the drawing, they have like a little gas fire pit and some seats on the outside. And the other thing I wanted to say is the reason this summer they added the sails that were over that area because of the complaints from many people of being sitting in the direct sun. So that's why the sails were put up to get, and let's be honest, nowadays people are very concerned about, skin cancer, all that stuff. They want a place they can sit and be comfortable. Still feel the fresh air, but don't have to worry about being blasted. So I think it's the best of both worlds.
Well, I have said everything I need to say. Anybody else have any other comments for the applicant someday when they come to us formally?
Well, I think the other consideration about the building is it's gonna, for better and for worse, it's gonna remove parking. I think from an appearance point of view, it probably
that's not our issue.
Looks better.
That's not our issue.
I do have one more thing I wanted to say to the whole board, and Ms. Collins would verify this. If you go back in the history of the village and look through the past, in 1994, the vision of Mr. Collins was to turn this space in between Aladdin and Lock 32 into a seasonal use public space. It's in the minutes. It was presented. It never followed through. But the whole idea of that spot was to always be a small festival, public space to be utilized. And then if and when the weather became inclement and you needed it would be overflow parking. And we're only losing 3 spaces. The way the space was arranged compared to that parking lot, we're losing 3 spaces. And the village trustees have presented an option now to change the requirements for parking, which would allow everything down there as it sits today with the pavilion to match the required parking. So, we're doing.
Okay, but Steve, that's not our issue. Let's take that off the table. That's not our issue.
No, but the issue of the fact that the vision for this space originally, I think, is pertinent to this board and to the village.
Okay. Well, let me just summarize my point of view. We have to face this issue down the road of what you want to do with the signings, but I think the concept as you laid it out is wonderful. And I think what we're saying is we pretty much agree with the basic design that you've laid out. We don't have any major issues with it as the 4 of us on the board here. Is that correct?
Yes, I would.
And we applaud. Go ahead, Jenny.
I was just going to make, one more comment about just for the applicant's information. The HPB has little to say about what you propose to submit, but if you're proposing to have a little pocket park with permanent seating, you should check with Steve and be sure whether or not the HPB needs to look at and approve permanent amenities like that. And Steve, I don't have any idea. It's your purview. I would absolutely leave that up to you. My only comment is be sure that the applicant knows, because of their interest in only coming to us one time, be sure the applicant knows all the elements of the proposed project that need to be reviewed.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Jenny and Daniel, do you have any other questions for us?
I do not. Oh, sorry.
No, I think that it was very helpful, and I appreciate this opportunity so that we can get a head start on the next step. So I think that the time was very valuable for us. Thank you.
Great. Well, good luck with that. We're excited to have something there.
I wanted to.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great addition to the village. Yeah.
I wanted to ask one question of the board members. If we come in there, and there's been a lot of talk about the enclosures and these overhead doors, and it would be two options, correct? That you'd want to see, the one would be open and the other, if we show these carriage house type doors, our intentions were, as another option, was to put just these 6 doors in on the south and north side. And they would look just like a carriage house door, very traditional looking, that would come up, and the times when most of the time they'd be up. And then the side walls, we would have sided part way up, and then we would put in openings that we could use a hatch door to open up. Anyway, my point is that, or my asking the board here is, when I have to prepare these options, I want to show you two. Maybe our one option would be, because this enclosure thing is a discussion for us to decide on whether we're going to be able to do it and afford it and make it look right for what we like and also the board require. So I would assume that I'm going to make 2 presentations, one with this open pavilion and the other would be with these 6 doors. The ends would either stay open or they would be enclosed with open peekaboo, no windows, but they could open up in the summertime.
So Daniel, let me just clarify. So tonight we're just going to talk about the structure because that's all we have that's the only thing we have.
Yeah,
now for future.
We would really have to.
Hold on, Bill, let me finish.
We would really have to see what you're proposing.
So Daniel, in the future, what I would recommend is get the structure passed, and then if you want to draw up loosely 2 ideas and come back for an information only session again, then I think that's the best plan. Okay, so don't get too elaborate in the drawings to give us some time to tell you what we feel about the quasi stuff, and then you guys go back, choose what you're going to present to us, because we can't have you presenting 2 things. We need to have you present one thing. So come back to us with the enclosures and an information only session, and then we'll talk about it, and then you go back and do your full drawings to do the presentation for the application. Okay? Thank
you. Yep.
All right. Okay. So if anybody has any other questions, I think we can close this. I think that was really great insight, and we're really happy about this application to come forward to us when it gets a little, when it's ready.
I hope I'm going to see you again in February.
Oh, we'll be there.
We hope so too. Yes.
We'll have confidence. This is going to happen. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to move on with our board meeting. So Jenny and Daniel, you don't have to stay if you want. It's kind of boring. We're just going to do minutes. Is that right, Linda?
Yeah. Okay.
No problem. Well, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. So I did read the minutes because I do that. But does anybody else have time to read the minutes, or did they take a look at the minutes so that we could do a?
I have some I
Yep,
have some
let's-
changes I'd like to make to the minutes when you're
Okay.
ready.
Okay, Jenny, go right ahead.
Just let me open to the correct page. I was, because I was late joining the meeting, is the sign application not happening tonight?
No, it's already been approved because the meeting starts at 5:30.
It's done.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
Totally
okay,
my
no
fault.
problem. I think you would have been fine with the sign.
Yep,
Well,
I'm
I-
going to sign off for now.
Okay, well, I did have a couple of, I had one comment, and that was about the color of the background.
The background
That was an
color,
issue that we resolved.
yeah, it's going to be white.
How was it resolved? May I know how it was resolved, please?
Yes, the applicant
It's all
wanted a
white.
white background.
Okay, my concern was that JoJo's sign is sort of a dark yellow color, and the other sign, I don't know if it's going to be above or below the proposed sign, is sort of a very pale yellow. And my comment would be that the color of the sign the background color of the new sign should match the other light colored sign background for consistency and some coherence in the sign menu board.
Well, the good thing is that it's white, so that you got your wish.
No, I didn't want it
Yep,
to be a.
Yep, we agreed.
Oh,
I
because
wanted
they
I
only
wanted
said
it to-
black.
Pardon
It
me?
was- Their only choice, they only wanted white or black.
Well,
Or
they
back.
don't have, yeah. Just as a point of order, if the board had required them to have a green background to provide compatibility in the signs on the menu board, they would have had a choice: no sign or do what we require.
Well, Jeff, is it my understanding that we don't have jurisdiction on color?
On signs, I believe we do.
We
I
have
don't
we have jurisdiction of color insofar as it is a matching issue.
And my issue was matching.
Is a matching issue. So so you're saying to me that if you've got 3 businesses back there, they've got to coordinate their colors to match each other? I just lost you, Jeff. I can't.
Jeff, you're muted.
Sorry, I did not say that. I said that we have jurisdiction when it comes to, the background should be this or that, depending on the environment within which it's being placed. Generally, we do not have jurisdiction of colors. But for instance, if somebody's going to put another trim window in, we have jurisdiction to say, and the trim will match the existing trim. I didn't say that the signs have to match. I merely said we have jurisdiction.
Okay.
How
I don't know.
the board chooses to exercise that discretion is totally up to the board, provided that it's not arbitrary or capricious.
If you made all the signs, how would you differentiate between the 3 businesses? If they were all the same, it would look like one sign, and you wouldn't be able to see the difference between one to the other. I would think a little different.
That was my point, yeah. All right.
Pardon me, on that menu board, there are 4 signs. JoJo's is across the top, the full width. The bottom half of that sign is divided into 3 signs. One that is 1/4 of the size of the board, and 2 that are 1/8 the size of the board, but they're the same size, filling 1/4 of the board. In that sign panel, there should be some coherence. They don't have to be identical. They can be different, yet similar in some way. All of the font could be the same. All of the background color could be the same. There are a variety of ways in which a company could distinguish themselves without making it impossible to tell what's what.
Okay, well, Ginny, you know what? We've already passed it, so that's something that we'll consider
Yeah.
for next time.
Gone.
Okay, you need to consider that for the next time, and I apologize. I was caught up in the news this afternoon.
Okay, no problem. And then did you have something else for the minutes that you wanted to?
Yes, I have. additions to the minutes for the application for Mr. Newcomb's property. These are all findings of fact. So Linda, I will read them, but if you want, I can email you the text.
Yeah, I have something to take care of, folks. I'm going to sign off. I don't need to be
Okay.
part of the minutes. All right,
No,
thank
no.
you.
Thank you, Steve.
Ginny, I think that if you email Linda findings and facts, I think that would be fine. I don't think you need to read it off tonight. Is that okay, Linda?
Well, my concern is that findings of fact are very important, and
I
it's
agree.
not clear that all board members even read the minutes. So I'm happy to send them, but I'm going to continue to instigate for findings of fact for every application we review, whether it's a one-sentence findings of fact or 5 paragraphs. Every single one should have findings of fact.
I agree, Ginny. And could you do me a favor when you send them to
Okay.
Linda? Please see all of the board members so that we can read them.
I sure will.
Yep.
All right, then I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to send out a motion to approve the minutes from December, Linda, December
11th, I believe.
11th, 20? Was it 14th or 11th? 14th, December 14th, 2020.
12/14.
December 14th, 2020. Do I have a second?
I second.
Oh, no, because I'm
Bill
amending
McBride.
them.
Yeah, that's with Ginny's findings and facts that we're including.
Okay, I just second them. Bill McBride.
All in favor?
Vote.
Ken?
Yes,
Lisa? Yes. Bill McBride?
Yes.
Ginny?
I'm going to abstain because they're not the minutes yet.
Okay.
Right.
If I ever am missing from the meeting again, please call me. I believe that my phone number is, I've given that to the office, and Linda sent out a list of phone numbers at my request. So another time, please call me.
Were you confused about the time?
No, I just was simply not paying attention, and I'm sorry, but I guess you had a
No.
quorum. You had a quorum. You don't have to call me. Never mind.
But we do like you here, Ginny, because you're helpful.
Well, I'm sorry that I'm very sorry that
It's
I
okay.
missed the application for the sign, because I had a pertinent point regarding compatibility
Yep.
of the sign, which Jeff supported my position that we do have an ability to have jurisdiction over color. So
Yeah, I don't think that we decided because we didn't think we had jurisdiction. I think we decided because we all felt that it was appropriate color for that sign. So I think that
okay.
we're okay.
Well,
Okay, so does anybody else have anything else to say before we end our meeting tonight? Everybody okay?
Nope.
yes.
All right,
Yep.
thank you guys all for your time. And
Good night.
we will see you next month.
Great.
Thank you.
Did we
Right.
ever get Mark in on this? Mark,
No.
did you ever come on board?
No.
No,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Good enough. Thanks. Bye-bye.